to really dive into what do we really know about it before we let you people loose. And and we've uncovered a lot of things and they're being dealt with. But I've hatched a plan, and that is to roll it out slowly. If I rolled it out, who who's echoing me?
I think you're okay now.
Um, if I rolled it out to all of the three primary groups who want to try it, I call it clinical trials. You know how then the FDA won't let you sell a drug unless it's been through these clinical trials. And the first trial is always the one that you just show it doesn't kill people. And then the second one puts it on more people to see. And then the third one is where you say, okay, let's weigh what it is. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So my plan is to start the small quest that Renaud asked for first, because there will only be two teenage girls in it, and that's easily manageable, and it will let me debug how I present the platform. And then we'll start once hers is rolling, then we'll start one with this tribe.
Okay. Do you want some time today to prepare the tribe for, or do you want to wait till next week? What do you think?
I'm happy to wait. I don't look, I don't want to be the center of your universe, okay? I'm just doing what I'm doing, at the request of some people in this group, they wanted to play with the toys to see to get a feel for it, okay? And so I am not the center of the meta level universe. I'm a bit player.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna do a quest, we'll need to prepare people through this venue if we're gonna do a test a quest on defining the meta level. Or I actually think that uh maybe it might make sense for us to have Milja talk a little bit about her vision of a group that can help really steer our efforts here. So that's one thing that I think uh, does relate to this idea of a quest. And also, I think today maybe we'll also talk about what's happening with the GovHub, where we're at with Canopy, and get the update on the Quest as well. Are there any other subjects that people would like to have covered today? Okay. And Milia, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're proposing with respect to a group that can help us steer and uncover the really important top level goals at some point?
Yes, thank you. Quest is a very deep, structured, um, founded way to address open questions that we face today. But it's not the only way, and we our goal is to uh, engage and involve as many different perspectives and different members of this meta layer community as possible. For all those who can do the quest, that is absolutely fantastic because the quest will be a very immersive exposure to the topic maps, how to build them, how invaluable they are when we start thinking about more than half of the things that have come up so far when people were brainstorming about what the meta layer will be for. But for those who may not be there yet, or unavailable, or have a different engagement preferences, a less intensive way to still contribute, steward the group through this stage of meta layer development would be to join this project on GVHub or in some other way that those who are interested can come together and decide what shape it would take. But basically, the goal would be to articulate more clearly what are the goals. For example, consent. What does that mean exactly? Or overweb as a layer of layers that protects people from what exactly? So what are we trying to achieve? What kind of conditions we're trying to create for participants in the meta layer so that they can do the things that will enable their communities to solve their problems more effectively than today. And then we work backwards in order to achieve actually implementable, meaningful, informed consent, or in order to achieve certain level of verifiable, whether something is verifiable. It's not enough to just see whether someone is a person or a bot. And for some of the communities who may be among the early adopters, the human identity is not even a part of the prerequisites because they operate already within communities who know each other IRL, and what they need is more of the knowledge weaving capabilities that the meta layer can bring. So basically, we work backwards towards, from the promise of the meta layer, all the inspiring vision of decentralized governance and community governance that we are all here for, that's made us all enthusiastic about this and made us all get involved. And then identify what are all the things we need to put in place for that to actually happen? What are the things we have to avoid? There will be a lot of iteration, especially because we can't know in advance how communities are going to want to use the meta layer in their daily life. And in order to get it adopted and useful and valuable, we need to have the space for that iteration. But there are things we don't need to iterate on. We know that security and privacy solutions of today fail in the areas that are our goal, in terms of people being able to decide what data is harvested and what's not. So basically, it is very timely as a joint collective dreaming, vision, articulation, and debate, because as of today, we need to be making design decisions that fit the promise of the meta layer to maintain its credibility from the very beginning and build the trust and user base through this. So it's an invitation for everyone who has aspirations for what meta layer can do in people's lives, whether the person is technical or not, in terms of background, to join up and articulate more specifically that collective vision of this meta layer guild, so that we can work backwards and ensure that we don't do anything today that undermines or cancels out the potential for achieving what we wish to achieve, and that we do everything that we need, that there are no gaps in the approach, that we cover the design holistically, so that we end up on this journey, because the technology is here. That's the thing. We don't need to invent anything, but we do need to be very careful of how we use the existing tools, because a lot of them were built under completely different priorities. And so we can't um, just apply the same development process that is done on other platforms if we want a platform that empowers the people, which is the opposite of what everything in existence does. That's the invitation. Maybe a GovHub page, maybe something else, like whoever is interested, open to ideas on how do we bring this discussion to life and start teasing out the crisper, clearer collective vision and the choices that we need to make beforehand, including now, to reach that. I open to questions immediately or later.
Jack's got his hand up.
Yes, thank you for that, Milja. It was really broad spectrum and clean. But I want to manage expectations. Topic maps don't come into play until you are federating mini conversations. And so we will not be demonstrating a topic map and its value in the near term. But since we're doing what I call 3 clinical trials on it, we're with 3 different groups. Now I can federate those results. And then I can come back and show the topic map, but that's at a later date. But I want to manage my expectations. The work that I will be doing with Renad and you and this other group does not include a topic map. And so I just want to manage expectations. Over.
Okay, that is good to know. I was really hoping that we'll get to feel it sooner. But part of the quest, in addition to how do we, like, what do we mean by security and safety and how do we achieve them, is also collective knowledge. How do we achieve collective knowledge? How do we achieve verifiability or be able to track reasoning, etc.? So that will be covered as a meta layer characteristic as part of the quest, but thank you for clarifying that we won't get to build the topic maps before the quests are federated.
And my response to you and to everybody is simply this. Once you actually have the conversation tree, you will have evidence-based belief systems that are surfaced among the groups, which then you can take out into individual meetings to talk further or whatever. But a quest, even though we put a time box on it and say it's going to end at such and such a date, every quest is going to surface things we didn't think that demand another quest. So questing is supposed to be the conversation that never ends and brings fresh people and fresh faces and fresh belief systems into it. Now the smallest model of that is something called the World Cafe. The World Cafe was invented by some people who found out that they could go and rent a small restaurant with a lot of tables. And here in America, we call them cafes. Um, was closed in the evening, and they would then put the tablecloths were made of paper, and they would seat four people at each table randomly from a group that came in the door. And then somebody would pose the question of the day, like, what should we do about climate change? Just that we just pose it. And the people at the tables would begin writing ideas on the tablecloth. And then a bell would ring after 20 minutes, and one person stayed at the table, and the other three spread not together, but to other tables. And they would examine what the other tables had done and add their ideas to it, or modify their ideas, or whatever. And then when it was over, um, that's a kind of a continuing conversation. Your time is up. Now go do something else, but continue the conversation. And then when it was over, then the table monitors would present their results. And web cafes are a very powerful tool. They've been used all over the planet. I have to tell you that I participated in one web cafe where they set 20 people at the table, at, at, and we got nothing done. There were there we we people would just hog the table and do random things, and we got nothing done. But when we were at Stanford at a table set by four, and I'm sitting at a table with an MIT professor, we just really got a lot done. So there's a model for what we're talking about. Over.
David, you're on mute.
Thank you. Milja, do you think it makes sense to share the diagram that you had put together just to help orient?
Sure. Can you?
Yeah, I can. I
Thank
think.
you very much.
Let's see. All right. And in the meantime, while I'm getting that up, does anyone have any questions? We went over
Yes,
quite a
please.
bit. Okay. Okay.
The whole point is to what we're trying to do with David is figure out how to get people involved to contribute and steward this open question discussion. And if we figure out how to do that in this group about the meta layer that we're trying to build, it will help us structure the global governance, the global decentralized governance of the meta layer or the overweb. And it will also be a blueprint for how the communities can structure their own governance in the meta layer. So please, whatever questions, comments, confusion you have, the goal is for us to come together and basically plug the red areas, because currently what we have here is the rectangle, which is the initiative evolving over time. Currently, we're defining desirable properties and we're working towards the future societal impact goals of the meta layer initiative that we were all inspired by and joined. And below we have Dee's onion, where she described the meta layer global governance. Yes, thank you so much, David. Where we have technical and professional concerned community in the green belt, the social communities who will be the communities on the overweb around it in purple, and then we have the blue participants, people who are actually going to be leaving the overweb use throughout their daily lives. And so the idea is to have representatives of all these layers of the onion from the very beginning, because we're building this for the people, with the people. And currently, in terms of the feedback loop, the green onion, which is most of us and others who have contributed to desirable properties so far, there have been democratic feedback on desirable properties, and people have been dreaming together into this decentralized governance vision of an overweb which can protect people from downfalls of AI, misinformation, bots, and other things, data harvesting, etc. But if we want to reach the promise, the aspiration that has basically attracted us all here, we need to define holistically collective vision for what are the meta layer goals. For example, consent. What do we mean? AI safety. What do we mean? And then work backwards to make sure that today we are considering everything that is needed, so that there are no gaps in terms of desirable properties or any other elements that are necessary as building blocks to achieve the goals. And also to make sure that the design decisions that are being made today are consistent with the promise of the meta layer. It will go through different generations as the solution that goes from prototype to wider and wider adoption, but it will need to have certain elements from the very beginning to differentiate from the background status quo current market situation that we're trying to escape from. We need an escape velocity from the very beginning in astronomy terms. So in addition to the existing feedback channels that are made in green, where a variety of technical members of this community have contributed to desirable properties, and a broader set of people has been part of saying things about how we want humans to be protected in this overweb. There is a need to build feedback mechanisms for the broader community into the open questions and the holistic, explicit collective vision of the meta layer goals. And then we need to build a chain that goes from where we are today to where we want to get, to understand what are the things that we need to include, where do we need to leave the space for iteration to see how the communities are going to be using this and develop it in a way that is empowering for them and therefore drive adoption and differentiation in the market from other solutions. And where do we need to apply what we already know about, for example, security and privacy, and what currently doesn't work. And so we don't start where everybody else starts with that. We start at a different point, because that is a core promise of this. So if we figure out how to build this feedback system, it's basically how all the community governance will work. Every community in the meta layer will decide together what safety means for them and choose the settings. And their process for doing that and for continually doing that as the behaviors evolve in their piece of the meta layer will be based on mechanisms we can discover and create here together. So please, any comments?
Go ahead, Suzanne. I'll wait because you had your question in the chat.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Oh, we can't hear you, even though you're not on mute, I guess.
It's difficult to hear you, Suzanne.
Why don't you go, D, and then she'll work it out.
I'm glad to see this mock-up design, Milja. I think it's relevant and appropriate. But it brings me back to conversations that I've had with David and Suzanne about how do you engage in this big, complex, fast-moving thing that we're working on. And orientation and onboarding for new people that we want to bring into our orbit to work on any one or more of these parts is going to be real important for us. So we have some grounding, and I just worked on. There's a little bit of feedback now.
If you're not talking now, mute yourself so we don't have that feedback at the moment.
So
Thank you.
I did a little bit more work on the ISOC Nevada group where the focus was on orientation and onboarding. I believe that's really important so that all of the people that are wanting to engage can engage at the level that's appropriate for their interests, their skill set, and frankly, the time that they have. So where can they just plug in very, very quickly and then be able to see their contributions kind of unfold and their voice heard. So I'm working on that model, and I have some framework for that I just shared with Suzanne this morning, and I'm pulling in some other folks. But I do think it's important to arrive at this point of here's the big project, and where do we want to place ourselves at the moment, because we can always travel, around the diagram and in and out, as Jack had mentioned. So we need to have that ability to and it's frankly a comfort level that we need to provide the participants in this whole social experiment some comfort knowing the rules of engagement, how to provide feedback, what's the best way to provide feedback, and contributions. So not only is it providing a mechanism, but the best practice tools so that we can harvest that and actually fold it back into the mega design that we're building up to. So I just want to put that out there that on the ISOC Nevada level, we are also looking at that quick entry, immersive orientation that's not so invasive that it scares people away, and then a quick plug-in. And I do have that model that's going to be out by the end of this week. Okay.
That is fantastic. So that addresses a different question and a different need for a different audience. I completely agree that in order to create a community and reach a critical mass around the meta layer, it was necessary to keep things simple, not get bogged down in definitions, not get too worried about theories of change and all the architectural consistencies, because we needed the activation energy to be low. We need people not to get scared. Everything you just said, completely agree with that. But now we are at the point in the design process, in the building of the prototype, in reaching out to communities who could be early adopters. And we have a community of people who have already contributed to the desirable properties, who have already took part in the workshops around what is the meta layer, and what are the sense-making mechanisms in the meta layer. And it is that group of people engaged and passionate about it who are already contributing and who have spent some time with us on this journey that this addresses, basically making sure that what we are working on are the right things at the right level in order to achieve what we want. But if we now switch to the context of onboarding that Dee just talked about, I am fully on board with the fact that we need to have an easy orientation in terms of in style of a roadmap that explains where MetaLayer is in its development stages and explains how people can engage. And there is nothing more powerful than having clear, holistic, explicit, collective vision of the goals to empower people to be able to get motivated and come up with a way to get engaged based on, of course, their time, etc. So I understand that the project on the open questions and the quest are higher in terms of time requirements, and that we want the meta layer development to become part of people's lives, even at much lower level of engagement and cognitive load and activation energy. And that is perfectly fine. But completing what was on this screen that David was sharing gives us, firstly, the clarity of where we are going in the holistic, explicit, collective vision of the goals, so that people can understand what we are trying to achieve. And in my experience, that is extremely empowering in terms of them bringing their expertise, bringing their experience, and doing it their own way, but in a coherent effort towards the same shared goal. And we will have clear places for them to plug in terms of contributing, whether it's desirable properties or other areas, depending on their technical level. And it will be very important in your onion also to have community members who are good at problem framing to play a very active role in shaping the meta layer early on. So basically, this is the prerequisite for easy onboarding, for clarity of what we're doing, where we are in that process towards the goals, and for clarity of what are the things that need to be contributed to today, done in such a way that we don't miss the mark, or we don't have a gap, or we don't lose credibility or users in a multitude of risks during adoption process of a new platform. Does that make sense? To Dee specifically.
Yes, it does. We're working hand in hand. We need both.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Milja, I'm wondering, I mean, this is just what came to me as I'm looking at the diagram, and just wondering if this would work in your mind as well. When I saw this, I thought, well, okay, this is kind of the conceptual side over here, and this is more the implementation side. And so I thought maybe design key decisions are over here. And I thought instrumental goals, that is the kind of the collective link between, excuse me, not the collective link, but the that's the link between desirable properties and open questions to design key decisions. Like we our goals are what will ideally shape what these design key decisions are. So in my mind, I was thinking, let's remove this, move instrumental goals here. So that's the focus of what this group does. And then there's going to be a technical group that then comes and says, well, these design key decisions that flow out of our understanding of the desirable properties and the goals. What do you think?
I think we can collectively massage the diagrams so that everybody feels it's intuitive and captures what we're trying to do as a group. as a team working on these open questions. The intent here is to show time from left to right. So the evolution is currently we're in prototype stage. There are some desirable properties being articulated. There are some key design decisions that are being made that currently aren't quite in the full feedback loop with the community or in the full reverse engineering from the ultimate goals. And so I'm trying to point out the big red arrow as a gap in that because we haven't articulated explicitly consent, protections, etc., we are not building all the elements that we need in order for that to be true from the beginning. And the elements we do have are not really calibrated to what we're trying to do, because we're trying to do something different than what is out there currently. So that's the point. Like, we have a big missing chunk that we need to build together, because we need to discover specifically, if we say what we're going for, what are the things we need to build to achieve that, and at what level they need to operate. And it's a message of, we have gaps today, we have gaps in the vision, and most importantly, we have gaps in the explicit mechanism of how we link the decisions today to the promise of the meta layer.
Awesome. And I think one thing that I would point out is, so the design key decisions that are being made now for Canopy are just that for a prototype. I'm considering Canopy as, it's not going to be a prototype. I'm building it to be, in the interim, we're building it to be much more robust than a prototype. But nevertheless, I do see this code not being the code that will be the ultimate foundation of the meta layer, because I'm imagining that we're making decisions and moving things forward on this prototype, but through this process, what we're talking about here, we're aiming to arrive at essentially a substrate that can be used by people to build meta layer applications, and that substrate may have some differences from this early Canopy first meta layer application that's being built at the moment.
Absolutely. And as long as we're clear, security levels here are certain step, because the purpose of Canopy is to get people involved in the overweb, to give them a sense for what they can do, for us to start tracking their behavior, their needs, their interests, and start molding it to their needs. If we're very clear for what it does and doesn't deliver, and how it's different from that civic infrastructure substrate that we want to build, that is okay for credibility. That is okay for us learning a lot of the things we need to know, even though not all the key parts of the promise are in place. GVHub also has a super secure version where you do quests under perfect conditions in terms of logic, structure, accountability. It's an adult's game for solving complex problems humanity is grappling with. And then there is the version for schools to enable children to develop critical thinking as they learn. And that version is different in terms of security and anonymity, etc. So if we have a rationale for what we are trying to learn and what we're trying to offer with Canopy and how that's different from the civic infrastructure, that is perfectly fine, as long as we are clear that not every key piece of the environment will be present there.
Right. Exactly. So I guess it's there. So there's, I think, the opportunity for people to weigh in on both the kind of short term, how we're going to do things moving forward with Canopy, with the idea that we're going to actually be building things and starting to use them in the next couple months versus the long term decisions for the meta layer substrate. Uh, yeah, so those are, yeah, both interesting things to think about. What else? I think well, what I want to do, and we can come back to this as well, but I want to mention that I have went through the process of generating all of the desirable properties. So we have 21 different desirable properties of a meta layer now. And to be clear what this is, it is the I'm using OpenAI, ChatGPT, to synthesize all the information that we brought into the process initially from the book. Then there were two calls for input. And during that, there were a number of different meetings, a number of different email communications, and a number of different submissions that were given over the last, I guess it's 18 months. And over 100 people have the thinking of over 100 people have gone in to these different desirable property documents that I did generate. And what I'll say is part of me wanted to read every single one of them and spend about an hour with every single one of them, or even maybe even more, because they're very dense, and just really pick apart them and add every single thing that I wanted to see in there. And I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get to that anytime soon. And I thought that it would be better just to open up the process to all of us to essentially take this AI generated first cut, which is very good, but there it's certainly probably not comprehensive, and I'm sure there's things in there that maybe they could be done better. And actually, I know that there are many things in there that could be done better. I think it's a very good starting point from what I've looked at, but it needs our human touch now. And what I'm seeing the process as, we're gonna I'm gonna get these up as soon as possible on the GovHub, and I'll show you all what the GovHub looks like, just so you know. Let me share that. Share again. Go to the desktop. So this is the current version of the GovHub I'm about to show you, and it's very simple at the moment, which is great in some ways, actually. But as we move to a more complex GovHub, we're going to need to just make sure that we do it in a mindful way. So right now, the GovHub, it's the meta layer governance hub. It has documents, work groups, and you're able to submit a draft. And so the whole idea of this is to have a system that allows for decentralized governance based on documents. This comes from, well, we're inspired by the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force, been around about 3 decades, and that's how they do their work. They essentially have a system that is transparent, decentralized, and inclusive. Anyone can submit a draft. Anyone can comment on a draft. They have meetings and they get together and then decide if there's a rough consensus to move forward with a draft. That's great if you have, funding from all these large organizations and you can fly people all around the world. That isn't where we're at. and that isn't really our goal. So we're gonna have some type of other process, voting process where people can indicate whether or not they want to move forward with a draft. So when a draft gets moved forward, it becomes a request, an RFC, request for comment, and becomes part of the canon, the the corpus of the particular thing that we're working on. In this case, the meta layer. And so if we come here, we can see that there are a number of different meta layer drafts that have been created. So this first one is called Foundational Governance Practices. This was actually put up a while ago. Um, you can see here, so the 2nd of February this year, and it's about the initial governance practices of the meta layer. And you can see all the comment here, the content here. So it's a somewhat long draft, probably about 5 to 6 pages. But anyway, the idea here is that you would make comments on the draft. Oh, maybe that you need to log in. I'll do that. Let's go ahead and log in. So I wanted to make a comment, and it's telling me that I have to be recognized. So I'm going back, and we'll come over here to meta layer draft 1 and view comments. There are none at the moment. There were some on the previous version on this, but this is actually a revision. But you would just come in and make your comment. You could also make your comment in hypothesis, and soon we're gonna hook up Canopy, so you can actually make your comments in Canopy. You can see here that there is an original version, and then this is the second version of this. So we're now making comments on the second version. And
So
once we
does
get,
do we retire the previous version once the new version is available?
yeah, it's just layered on the previous version. Is it available? It is available to review. This is it, I believe. Yeah, this is it. But we make our comments on the new version, the latest version, and we keep this here. I'll add a diff so you can see what the difference between the new version and the old version is. I'll put something in between these two. That way, it will be really easy to see what changes.
Okay.
And so far
What changes and who contributed the change? Is that also annotated?
well, the changes will not, the changes are from document to document, and so they won't necessarily say who made comments on it, but we can preserve the comment history so that we understand that as well. So that maybe that's something that we should make available as well as the diff. It's Yeah, that's an interesting. Let me think about that, about how we
For
can
me, that's
do
an
that.
important property.
Well, we definitely can keep the comments. And the question is how those, if those directly, how those directly link to the actual differences in the document. That's another thing altogether. Although I think we can do something. So yeah, let's flag that and work that out as well. And so you see here, we've got, what is it? So it's 6 different ones. We've got 3 AI ones. So this is DP11, safe and ethical AI. We have community governance of AI, that's DP12, and we have DP13, AI containment. And so if I just want to show you. So this is safe and ethical AI. You've got the problem statement, AI systems, act before governance processes can respond, often without clear identity-bounded authority and persistent responsibility. We have a bunch of different threats and failure modes. Let's see, what else is in here? We have a core principle. So AI is safe and ethical in the meta layer only when its behavior is disclosed, bounded, attributable, contestable, and subject to governance at the zone of interaction with responsibility persisting over time. That's kind of the basic statement. Then we have primary mechanisms and structural conditions. And it goes on. And basically, this is here for you to review, to understand what's being proposed, and to weigh in, because we need to understand what you think about these different governance, accountability, and agency services, and incentives and power analysis. And we just need to make sure that we're on the right track for this, so that we can, by September, this would be my goal. So we're essentially 5 months out. By September 16th, which would be the 2-year anniversary of Vince Cerf challenging us to do a essay on the desirable properties of a meta layer, I'd like to deliver version 1. And so the idea here would be that we're going to have all 28 of these up. Would love for people to comment, and over time, we will open this up so that people can actually suggest specific revisions. So right now we just have this comment capability, which is fine and good, but it isn't really linking it in a way that you were asking for, Dee. So that I think the next layer of this will be enabling people to provide specific revisions. Like, instead of this text, let's do this other text, and then expose this or surface this in a way such that the community can vote on them and say, oh yeah, I like this revision. And then if we do it that way, Dee, then we will have a very strong record of what revisions were done, and who did them, when they did them, et cetera. So full provenance and everything. So that's kind of the next step. And my thought is that we're going to open this up so everyone has access to all the desirable properties. I hope to get them up in the next couple of days. And then for the next month or so, we'll have it open for comments. And people can be thinking about what specific revisions that they want to make. And as soon as we can get the actual revision code in place, then we'll make an announcement. Okay, it's time to go ahead and make your specific revisions. They'll be basically proposed, and over a period of time and through a process, the appropriate revisions will get accepted. Any questions on this?
Okay, I hope you hear me. Can you hear me?
It's hard, Suzanne. I think there's some
I
stuff.
don't know. It's fine. Computer. I have to get a computer.
I heard that.
That little bit.
I have to buy another.
It's still breaking up. You want to put it in the chat, maybe?
Yeah.
So
Hey, David, this is a great catch up for me real quick. What's the authentication mechanism for the GovHub?
GovHub is using Web3 Auth, and Web3 Auth, it's created by MetaMask. It basically offers about 12 different OAuth mechanisms. So Google, X, Farcaster, Facebook, I'm not sure if LinkedIn is in there, but there's another 8 or 10 of them.
And you
Plus
said Web 3
email.
off?
What's that?
You said Web 3 off?
Yeah, Web3 auth. I'll put it in the.
There's some echoing noise.
Is that Mel? Mel, is that you?
No, it's not. It's been echoing before I unmuted.
Oh, okay. But just to piggyback on Mel's question, because it's a bigger question, David and I had conversations about architecture and having commercial components come together for which we are dependent on. So I have a plethora of questions around how this architecture is coming together, and I'm beginning just a conversation about those components. So I will put that out there for other people to contribute their thoughts, because as we build this out, we're going to be dependent on some temporary components that we're familiar with, but may not be the best for the future of what we're building. So please, I love I mean, because you're asking the question about authentication and, all of these vehicles, and David wants to make sure that we're not turning anybody away when it comes to participating in our overweb. It's really important to consider what we have to use now versus what is a desirable part of the infrastructure that we build, or we encourage the development of it in some way. Okay, so
Yeah, I
just
totally agree. I'm an architecture person too, and David knows that, and I'm working in different capacities and have
yeah,
been involved with this kind of overweb thing for years and years. So I think I was just, to your point, mainly wanting to understand it is a much larger question.
yeah,
But as we solve for accessibility and security, how we were thinking about that, and that is both, to your point, a short-term and a long-term discussion from an architecture perspective.
yeah.
But I really hadn't even asked the question at all about what David was building. So I'm happy to be a part of those
I'm gonna
broader
pull you in
conversations as
because
well.
you've got those antennas, what we need for that.
You know what I'm wondering is, oh, go ahead, Milja, because maybe you were going to say what I was
I
going to say.
have a
Go ahead.
question for May. When you said you would like to be in broader conversations, which ones did you mean?
Who are you talking to?
May.
For Mel?
Oh, sorry. My eyes are very,
Mel,
very bad. I thought I thought I
Oh,
was reading May. Mel.
not May.
Hi.
okay. So I missed
Mel,
the question. I'm
yes.
sorry. Yes.
You said you were saying you would like to be part of broader conversations. Which conversations were you referring to?
Well, so to be clear, I've been a part of broader conversations already. And I am a part of broader conversations regarding architecture. So what Dee was just saying, she's dead on, and it makes sense that I asked the question that I asked, because I am a person that is considering architecture, whether we're talking about a canopy or prior conversations we've had about meta layer communities, over web technology, Web3, voting. Like I've been around for a long time on the topic.
That
And
is,
so
yeah.
yeah, so I was just curious because I hadn't asked the question on this current iteration, because I am always
Mhm.
thinking about these two things, whether both in the immediate and short term and the long term solution to Dee's point. As a person who is also looking at technology and architecture, you can start where you're starting, but then there is an end game you also have to have in mind that you're designing for, and so I'm doing that in other capacities, which David is aware of. And so accessibility and security are always have to, I'm always just wondering how we're managing that on a short term and a long term basis, amidst a plethora of other things that come with architecture design and technology deployment, right? So
Absolutely. And
definitely interested in
I
staying
would like
connected
to
and
invite
staying.
you. So there is the question of like, David, what are you currently doing in the Canopy prototype? But I think that the conversation we need and the invitation is precisely what you said about the end game we are designing for, and keeping that in mind, and just having the discussion with people like Mel in the mix, where we talk about the pros and cons and the trade-offs of starting at this point or starting at that point, and what are we exactly trying to achieve? And if we start really low on security, how are we going to convert it over time? Like, what will the experience be? So that is the conversation we're trying to do. Like, not like, what are you thinking? Like, not single person isolated decision, void of like the full context, and most importantly, void of everybody else's input, but actually bringing everyone with, especially with the deeper experience on the topic, and having that kind of mix of perspectives, and having the conversation explicitly about the trade-offs and about the trajectory we wish to take. And we also need to think about who are the early adopters, what kind of communities we want, and that will also determine what the options are in terms of accessibility. So what would be a way to have that conversation, Mel? That is what we're trying to get going.
Well, I'm gonna defer back to the process here because I've been kind of missing for a long time. I typed a message to David to say it was great to get caught up because it's been several weeks. So I don't know if architecture becomes a topic for this discussion. If you have a separate meeting, I don't know how you guys are running that. You have a separate group that's working it.
We
I
are
don't know.
running. There is no group, there is no discussion. That's where we're trying to get started. So
So
I think it should
Milja,
be
as I
separate, right? A
mentioned,
separate meeting. Where we were talking about doing a separate meeting. Are there people who would be interested in being? I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's almost a steering group in a way. I don't know what we want to call it. You were calling it. What were you calling it, Milja?
open questions
Open questions.
project.
So, um, I don't know if we want to call it that, or I kind of feel like steering speaks to it a little bit better, but I'm actually I don't really care so much. But I guess who's able to participate if we were to have
We
another
need more than
meeting?
2 people, and we need people with experience. Like, we can't build what we want with like three brains. We have this incredible community around it, and
yeah,
we
I
need
think
the
we need
right
a
mix.
starting point, David, and like you and I had discussed, I've got the framing for that, and it's not complete by any means, but we once we have something to grab onto, I think people like Mel, myself, and others that are interested in the architecture topic can help develop the set of questions, develop the set of challenges, and inform the overall work group that's building the meta web prototype. So, let's get that kind of cooked up. I think it's one of the things I put on the ISOC Nevada list of projects, contributing projects, but it is bigger than our organization, and I would want to open it up to as many people as possible.
Awesome, awesome. And
Can I
so
steal one of your meetings though, David, so that the right people can come live, right? So can I steal the one 2 weeks from now? And then Mel will be on there too, and we can hash this out. Put some
yeah,
flesh around
absolutely.
it.
I guess in my mind, I'm wondering if your work around architectural decisions and aspirations could be folded within what Milja is suggesting. And it to me, they seem like they could work together, but love to hear from both of you on that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, the architecture piece is absolutely essential, especially as we explicitly surface and debate trade-offs of a compromised starting point. But then there's also the question of what are we building towards? Consent, meaning protection, meaning. So Mel is nodding. I don't know, like, does that put it in a different meeting or not? To me, it's all together because we define where we're going and then we build a trajectory.
They do converge, Milja. I just think we need our bearings to figure out what the baseline architecture is evolving right now, to come up to even the pilot. But the grand scheme of things, the desirable properties will need to be deliverable by these technologies in combination, and one might have a conflict with the other in compatibility. One might be needing influence from us to evolve that from whoever is authoring those technologies. I mean, I just have a whole bunch of experience with how these complex technologies come together. The software piece that we're working on, I have to say, is a little bit easier because we can make it so. But the other piece is we've got a hard dependency on some things, and we don't have control on a global level on some of the other things. And that's the biggest nut to crack because those bodies are already out there and institutionalized. So we just need to be informed about the challenges that they pose to us as a decentralized group trying to solve all of these big problems. Okay. And we need to be in front of them eventually to say, we are aware that you control X, but here's why we need you to do Y. And until and unless you get into the big arena in which, Oracle plays, for example, and some of the other MLLs play, we need to bring those questions forward because sometimes those big, gigantic entities don't hear our little concerns until it's too late. So we want to be ahead of that one. But definitely the ideas do come together at some point. Let's start somewhere first, though.
So Jack and then Renaud, if she's still around.
I think she might have dropped. I don't see her. Oh, no. She's just not on my tile. She's here. There she is.
She's there.
There she is.
I raised my hand because I'm looking for a clarification. And the reason I raised my hand is that David spoke of something called a steering committee. And a steering committee is like the helmsman on a battleship going to a particular destination. And so what I really want to know from this group is, what is your destination? Is it some single overriding architecture, or instead, is it the strict requirements that must be placed on any architecture that would flow out of, the great minds in this room? In other words, we know that humans didn't get to be the higher animals on the planet without vast diversity. Even though my government says you can't use that word, we're going to use it anyhow. And experimentation. And so I'm trying to elicit from this group a statement of fundamentally its final cause.
There is no final cause, Jack.
There is,
it
yeah.
evolves forever. It never gets finalized. So, it's, yeah, that's it. We're building in my mind, we're building a foundation that will allow people to continue building in ways that they seek.
The end state in my mind doesn't exist yet. I can't I can't even conceive it right now. As far as my intellect will take me. I need input and exposure and so much more to even suggest what that might be. But I think that's why we're all collaborating this way.
Yes, and I'm in agreement with that. You may recall that I gave you an hour or something long talk about my view of one and only one solution. And it was based on the very kinds of deliberations you're proposing that I'd been conducting since before 2010. And so, um, but I gave that talk knowing that it's not the only solution. It's just a candidate. And it too becomes fodder for evolution. I told you that I was trying to design the DNA and protein structures necessary for people to take it anywhere they want to go. And I'm going to stop. I think Renaud did have her hand up. I wonder if she still wants to talk before Milja comes in.
No, I was just wanting to say that I want to be involved in the private meetings that you were speaking about.
Awesome. Awesome. Milja?
Great. So I agree with Dee that we cannot even conceive of what it will look like, especially since a lot of it will be driven by how people weave it into their everyday life. And I agree with David that it will never be done. But when Jack says final cause, I don't perceive it as a static list of bells and whistles that we would be incrementally marching towards through some linear predetermined roadmap. I understand the question of final cause to mean what is the shape of the behavioral interactional landscape that we want to create. For example, if the goal is consent, the architecture is going to have to keep evolving because the broader context is going to keep evolving. So even to maintain the same level of meaningful, informed, actionable consent, there will always be further evolution, but that would be a part of a final cause. So if we want to give communities agency to tackle complex problems, to be able to build their own understanding, to learn from others, and to help each other in ways that are currently not enabled digitally and commercially, a final cause would be a shape of what kind of behaviors we want to enable, what kind of protections we want to put in place definitionally. And then, of course, the implementations can vary depending on the building blocks, depending on the priorities of those who are building on top of the substrate. And the battle will always continue in terms of keeping the safety and security and privacy. And people will be inventive and create new ways to I like David's tablications, new applications that perform some function for them in the meta layer. So in a way, it lives forever. It grows, it reconfigures based on circumstance. But the final cause would be what are we trying to give humanity in terms of an environment with capabilities and protections, is my understanding.
I like that. What about, are there any people that haven't spoken up? Would love to just hear how this is resonating, or if there are any questions that are coming up. anything that you can reflect back to us to help us understand better? There needs to be a permissions right Patriot Act. I think this is an ongoing conversation that I'm not totally sure I understand. But if someone wants to elaborate that, I understand that Suzanne's mic is not working as well as we would like, so maybe that may be more difficult. But okay. Um,
I think I know where Suzanne's coming from because the nature of work in certain circles is very sensitive. Some of it is scrutinized beyond measure, a common measure, and I think that we need to have considerations for those highly sensitive topics. Maybe they don't exist in our general public area by design, but if we're saying we're opening it up to everything, and that whole noospheric threading doesn't have any protected categories, it sort of conflicts. How do we resolve how we work through those ideations without being um, punished in a way for even thinking that? I mean, this is China, you guys, so right? So this is very, very important for us to, if we're going to think global, we need to think about the planetary challenges like that. So Suzanne, I'm sorry if I'm off on left field, but I love you and I know where your mind's at.
No, you got it. I think from her expressions that you nailed it. And I think that the conversation that we're talking about, the open questions conversation, that's a place where we can have that. Carlos?
Hi, everybody. So, one thing I just wanted to put out there, just to kind of give some reflection on today, I wanted to say I really like the GovHub.live. I think that's really, really helpful. I think that, like, as you guys were talking about, like, incorporating more people into this in an easy and accessible sort of way, I think that's something that I found really beneficial just kind of browsing through it here. So just wanted to give out my ideas on that, organizing it in like the work groups and the meetings and, potentially some reviews of what's going on at the meetings could be something very beneficial to make it easy for a wider audience to sort of engage in, and then that way they can contribute into all the different things.
That's a great point. And do you use Discord or Slack?
I currently do not, unfortunately, but I think as Dee was talking about with like, an easy onboarding, using things like that probably would be beneficial to that in conjunction with like, this sort of website where it's clearly laid out. And, I really like that you can contribute and kind of throw things on there. It just makes a little bit more sense too, because I know I wasn't here at the last couple of meetings because of I just got a promotion at work. So I didn't have time to take lunch at the right times. But even jumping into this, going to that site, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like it's all laid out there and I can contribute if I need to.
Yeah, on your
Awesome.
own time, right, Carlos? Because some of the alignment of time zones and such, and my day work schedule. So I'm grateful to catch you a little bit each week.
So wait a second. Is that a baby, a
Yeah,
chimp?
I was going to ask.
What is
a
that?
It's a
baby.
baby. It's my
Okay.
4-month-old Theodore.
There you go.
Who's
Oh, wow.
who's
Congratulations.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I think Dee knows this. My kids tend to go where I go, and just that's what you do. Still try and get
Yeah.
involved, but you juggle it
I
where you
love
can.
it.
Awesome. Okay. In terms of Discord, I want to just put this in here so that we do have a Discord. Maybe I'll go really quickly to it. But I also want to mention that we may need to change the Discord. I'm reaching out to the person who set it up, and I do need to get them to make us the owner. I'm not totally sure if they're going to do it just because I haven't been able to reach them yet. But am I sharing my screen? No, I'm not. Let's see. I'm just going to share, just let you show you guys that we do have a Discord, and uh, this it has a bunch of different channels. So I will be starting today putting the trend, either the meeting summaries will go in here and also a link to the recording. You have a bunch of other channels that there's one for the GovHub, and it talks about some new things that we put up there. There's one for Nevada ISOC that Dee will be using for that group. There's the San Francisco Bay Working Group, Meta Layer Working Group. It has theirs. There's one on desirable properties. So essentially, this is a way for us to keep threaded conversations going about specific things that we're working on. Like I said, I'll probably know in the next couple of weeks whether we have to change. If we do, we won't be changing the structure so much. We'll just go ahead and copy it over, and it'll be very easy just to jump right in. But I am gonna hopefully the person who owns it will transfer it over to me so that we can just stay with this one. Nevertheless, this is going to be, I think, one of the primary ways for us to work in between meetings, with that and the GovHub, of course. And then the other thing that's an open question, we know that there are some people who don't use Discord, but that do use Slack, and Slack and Discord are very similar. So initially I said, well, we're going to do Discord because Slack has some restrictions, like they don't allow you to see old data after a certain amount of time, and whatever. They have their own little thing. Uh, my latest thinking is once there gets to be more critical mass on the project, then we can have a Slack and a Discord, and wherever else people want to talk about the project, whether even on Reddit or whatever, there could always be a place to talk about the meta layer work. Right now, we'll start out with Discord and see how that goes. And if there is interest in among our group to start a Slack, I'm totally open to that as well. I may not participate in every single one. I think that's the 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 thing is we want to create an ecosystem where people participate and have conversations where they want to be. Of course, if you're having places to talk about the meta layer everywhere, it means that, obviously that there's some fragmentation that goes on. But I don't know. We'll make that decision over time, I guess, what platforms we want to work with. Let's see. Okay, so we have about 5 more minutes. Does anyone have any things that they want to cover in the next 5 minutes? Milja.
I have two questions. One, in the chat, Salva, Suzanne, Jack, Renard said they would love to join the conversation. I'm guessing D also, and I'm really hoping Mel as well. So that's the discussion that we were talking about, and I wonder what's the specific next step for that.
I think
Well,
a meeting.
I
go ahead.
asked David 2 weeks from now if we could kind of hijack his Monday meeting to bring up the architecture basic topic and start having dialogue on that.
So we have a meeting 2 weeks from now. I would suggest that if we're not going to have a meeting with this small group between now and then, which we could, that we at least start a topic
Yep.
on the Discord, and let's just start having some conversations. If a group of us, whether all of us or a small group of us, wants to have a meeting between now and 2 weeks, I'm in. So we can talk about that on Discord as well. So everybody who's interested in, what are we going to name the channel, Milja?
Open questions.
Okay, open questions. I'm going to make it right now.
Thank you. But there is not a lot of people on Discord.
We're not on Discord yet. Some of us.
Well, did you all see there is the invitation link is in the chat, I think. Oh, I just put it there, right? Did I put it there?
I just signed up for Discord and it told me that the link has expired.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to get the new one. Let me get that before we get off the call right now.
I have it, but I always forget it. Sorry.
What's that?
I have it, but I always forget it.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we
okay, so Mel has a conflict on May 11th, and I think we all do. That's the week of that special festival. So perhaps we could have a meeting where Mel and hopefully more people with that profile can join.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Dee, I apologize for.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
That wasn't on top of my mind, but yeah, like we can let's put
Let's
a
have it for
suggestion
3
out there.
weeks.
Yeah.
Let's have that meeting for 3 weeks for the Monday, and hopefully in between now and then we can have a smaller meeting for the open questions group.
Yep, that sounds good.
I just put the Discord invite. If someone could click through just to, tell me that it at least works, that would be helpful.
It works.
Okay, great. Awesome. So yeah, everybody, if you could jump over on Discord, just take a look, especially if you're in the open questions group. I'll have that set up very shortly. And yeah, is there anything else that people want to cover before we jump off today?
Thanks everyone for joining the open questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for really pushing it forward and making it happen.
Yeah, Dee was saying we need some place to start, but the problem is we've already started in prototype, in the flesh, and we really need to be mindful of how it relates to where we want to get. So yeah, we need the conversation to be more than 1 or 2 people.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks everybody. It's really great having you here, and have a great rest of your week.
Milja, can I contact you in half an hour? Would you be available?
Yay.
Can you give me your coordinates? I'll call you in half an hour.
All right. Go
I
Meta,
will.
everybody.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
Thank you all.
Go Meta.
Go Meta.